primer lugar, dar la enhorabuena a Experiencia por este evento tan oportuno. Yo soy José Campos, secretario de Participación de Comisiones Obreras. Y bueno, pues darle la enhorabuena a los participantes y, por supuesto, un saludo a todos los asistentes. Nosotros, Comisión y UGT, pues somos organizaciones fundadoras, miembros fundadores de Experiencia, y tenemos un compromiso de muy larga trayectoria con todo lo que es la inversión social, ¿no? Deciros que somos miembros fundadores, como decía, también hemos participado en grupos de trabajo, publicamos trabajos sobre este tema, estamos muy comprometidos, no me voy a extender un poco en lo que hace tanto comisiones como UGT, porque no es el momento, aunque tenía mucho que deciros sobre nuestro trabajo y el trabajo de los compañeros y compañeras, tanto de UGT como comisiones, en todo lo que es la inversión sostenible. En cualquier caso, voy a dar la palabra lo antes posible, porque a quien realmente quería escuchar es a ella, y deciros que Abigail Herron, es un placer tenerte aquí con nosotros hoy en esta jornada, y decirlo a todos que es una experta prestigiada internacionalmente en los temas de inversión sostenible, inversión responsable. Es una persona de un gran currículum académico, ha costado trabajo sacar una breve exposición de todo su currículum académico y sobre todo de su dilatada y extensa carrera profesional. Yo me voy a limitar a hacer algunas anotaciones para presentarla, pero seguro que se van a escapar muchísimos datos y ya de antemano te pido disculpas porque seguro que se me van a escapar muchos de los trabajos que está haciendo. Ella lidera el compromiso para la inversión responsable en AVIVA Inversor. Ella colabora con la gestión de activos, los propietarios de activos y empresas de integración y cuestiones medioambientales y sociales, la ISR. Por supuesto, es responsable también del Comité de Liderazgo de UTSIN, también del Comité Directivo del Club de Inversores, del Inversor, el 30%, eso claro, durante Mario, el 30% de las mujeres en los consejos de administración, es miembro del grupo de trabajo también del sector bancario, de los índices de sostenibilidad de la bolsa, también miembro del foro consultivo de consejeros no ejecutivos medioambientales del Travis Perkins. Y ella ha realizado, miembro fundador también del grupo NetWest ISA, asesor de consultoría reputacional y consultoría de sostenibilidad del Carbon Smart, miembro del Instituto ISA, está acreditada en Secretaría de Empresa, es miembro del Instituto Colegiado de Valores, graduada en Escuela de Administración y Servicios de la Universidad de Sheffield. Bueno, aquí tienes... trabajó en bufete también, ha trabajado en bufetes de abogado, también para el Parlamento inglés, para ministros. Bueno, ha tenido el premio, y termino con esto porque no sería muy largo, el premio al mejor administrador del año y, por supuesto, insisto, es una carrera académica y una carrera profesional muy importante y yo creo que su intervención va a enriquecer muchísimo esta jornada. Insisto, te disculpa porque la rapidez y sobre todo por el extenso currículum que seguro que se me habrá olvidado muchas cosas. Tienes la palabra, Abigail. Bienvenida.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Buenos días. Solo hablo poquito español, pero es un honor estar invitada, un privilegio hablar hoy en de mis países preferidos. So now back to English. Sorry for mangling your beautiful language. So I will keep this brief. If we could have questions and answers at the end, that would be fantastic. And please remember to have a microphone if you're asking a question in Spanish, so the interpreters can help me. So it's been an absolute joy for us at AVIVA Investors to watch Spain's CIF grow from 2008. A difficult time to start. It's been an excellent journey, and we've watched from afar. We've been very impressed with the progress made. And let's face it, if we wanted an easy job, we wouldn't be in this room, we wouldn't be in the careers that we're in. So it's fantastic that Spain CIF has taken a difficult problem and is making so much progress with this. And I think today is testimony to how far we've come. And just linking to the previous session, it was excellent to hear Valeria, for example, from the Principles of Responsible Investment, of which we are founder members, talk about the progress they've been making. I started my career with a member of the British Parliament who championed microfinance. So fascinating for me to hear the stories from BBVA just now, and also crowdfunding. At AVIVA Investors, if I want to trade in my personal account, I have to complete 14 different forms to trade on the stock market because there might be conflicts. So it was really interesting to hear about crowdfunding because that's where I put my personal money, so I don't have to fill in 101 forms all the time. So the aim of this talk is to talk you through the story of AVIVA Investors very briefly to set the scene. Then I want to talk about some projects and initiatives that might capture your attention and pique your interest. And then the third thing is to talk about opportunities to collaborate and bring the Spanish Investment Forum and the UK Investment Forum together, because the problems we're facing can't be tackled alone. So it's all about collaboration in my mind. So AVIVA Investors has 350 billion euros of assets under management, and we are the investment arm of AVIVA Insurance, which has operations in Ireland, France, Poland, Lithuania, the UK, and Spain. And I was lucky enough to spend 5 days in Madrid earlier this year when, once again, beautiful blue skies. So I always think it's sunny here, as opposed to London when it's always raining. So I spend my time talking to the companies we invest in. Maybe in the morning, I'm talking to a company about gender and diversity. You know, how many women do they have on the board? How do they plan to keep the talent that they have within the company? Then maybe over lunch, I'll be talking to a company about their executive pay, their corporate governance, maybe cybersecurity. And then in the afternoon, I could be talking to a company about their climate change policy, or what they're doing about the Sustainable Development Goals, or biodiversity plans. So I'm really lucky in that my days are pretty crazy, but really eclectic and interesting. So this slide here is a rough timeline of AVIVA Investors. Now, I can't claim any credit for most of this because I've only been at AVIVA for 2 years. But like all good stories, the AVIVA story starts 300 years ago when one of the founding bits of AVIVA was incorporated. And in those 300 years, the population of the world has increased by 14 times, and our economy has increased 800 times. But still, we've only got one planet. Now, 20 years ago, we started to devise our corporate governance voting policy, which is the document that you can see up there. And that was fairly radical at the time. Now it's quite commonplace. But these policies underpin our activities on corporate responsibility and corporate governance. I'm currently in the process of the annual update, which is taking far more time than it should. But some of the things that we do in our voting policy at annual general meetings is, if a company doesn't talk about its climate change strategy, we might vote against the annual report and accounts. Or if it's a FTSE 100 company and it doesn't talk about how it plans to increase the proportion of women on the board to more than 25%, then we might not support the re-election of the director responsible for that. So it's quite punchy. We've got our voting record. We vote on 4,000 companies each year. I've got a team of 4 amazing people, so it's not all on my shoulders, but it does get very busy. And we disclose how we vote on our website so anyone can see it, journalists, the companies themselves, other investors, NGOs, anyone that's interested. And so these policies here are a guide for our activities in this area. And then our approach to responsible investment is basically, it all hinges off getting buy-in from key management. I mean, that's why we've been able to be so kind of unique in some of our approaches. One of the things we do to get buy-in is we look for ambassadors throughout the firm. And these ambassadors can get an extra bonus if they take sustainable investment and put it inside their job. So maybe these ambassadors are fund managers, financial analysts, the marketing team. It can be anyone throughout AVIVA, and it helps to give them a financial incentive as well. And we call them our responsible investment officers, but basically ambassadors. And we've got 50 of those now. So we're a team of 8, but really we're a team of 58. And then on the voting and engagement side, that's kind of my bit. We voted on 4,000 companies, and we meet with about 800 companies a year, although that was last year. This year we've already met with 800, so I think we might go through the 1,000 mark this year. And these are some of the companies that we meet with. Now, don't panic. I'm not going to talk you through each logo. I just have some selected examples that you might find interesting. So going back to what we were talking about earlier about gender and diversity, I recently had quite a tough meeting with the chairman of Vodafone. I had some fund managers with me who they had some concerns. But when the chairman of Vodafone announced this new global maternity policy and the billions of euros that it would save globally through lost talent, the chairman just came alive, and it's such an excellent initiative, and it changed the whole tone of the meeting. So that's an example of a company that we think is, at least in gender and diversity, doing some really good work. Then at the top left, we've got Britvic. So Britvic, their story is it's all about beverages, and Britvic, I mean, it started with orange juice. They are synonymous with oranges. So one of the topics that we're really concerned as investors is the global decline in pollinators, bees. Oranges are entirely dependent on pollinators, natural pollination. So I met with Britvic and I said, we're seeing massive declines in pollinators globally. Every continent apart from Antarctica is seeing a decimation in the number of pollinators. What's your plan? What's your strategy? Do you have scenarios for this? I didn't get a great response at the time. It's better now. They're talking more about this in their sustainability report. But it's a massive issue for investors because 1 in 3 mouthfuls of everything that we all eat comes from pollination. And in California, I was lucky enough to be on holiday there last year, and I saw a truck driving up the highway, a massive truck full of bees. And Americans are very friendly, so I went over and I said, "Why have you got a truck full of bees?" And the man said, "This is how we pollinate the almonds. I start near Los Angeles and I drive all the way up to Washington State, and I stop, I release the bees, then they pollinate, and then I call the bees back." I don't know how you call bees back. And then I carry on driving. And it's just a crazy response to a sustainability challenge. It's not sustainable at all. On the other side of the world, in China, people have tiny artist paintbrushes, and they spend all day long pollinating apples and pears with the paintbrush. And apples and pears are now very prestigious fruits in China. You know, and if everybody on the planet gave up their job, I read this somewhere, and took up the paintbrush, there wouldn't be enough people on the planet to pollinate enough of the fruit and vegetables that we eat to keep us going. So pollinators sounds fluffy and campaigny, but really it's a massive systemic problem, and that's what we were talking to Britvic about. I mean, there's Apple, there's Walmart, been talking to them about their labour relations. Apple, fairly famous for, unfortunately, having a large number of employees that commit suicide from the factories in their supply chain. So we were talking to them about management of human capital. And let's just choose a couple more examples. So Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline in the pharmaceutical sector. A big issue for us is antibiotics resistance. So the World Health Authority, the World Health Organization recently said that because of the lack of effectiveness of the antibiotics that we rely on and that we've enjoyed since the 1930s, there's a real risk of us going back to the Stone Age, where if we haven't got antibiotics, we can't have replacement hips or knees, we can't do chemotherapy, we can't do organ transplants, and maybe even cutting yourself is a really big deal, whereas now it's no problem. So we, especially my pharmaceutical fund managers, are very alive to the dangers of antibiotic resistance. So with GlaxoSmithKline, we asked them how much of their research and development budget they were spending on finding new drugs, new antibiotics. And with Pfizer, there was some concern that some NGOs had talked about their factories putting waste products from antibiotic production into the rivers behind the factories, which I think you can all imagine why that's a bad idea. So we were talking to them about their management of that. So that's a conversation about antibiotic resistance on the supply side. On the demand side, we've been talking to some of the food retailers and fish farms. They are massive users of antibiotics in terms of factory farming, closed confinement systems. Did you know, fish farms, by the time you eat a fish that's been grown in a fish farm, that fish has eaten its entire body weight in antibiotics. It put me off my food. So it's all this kind of ties together under a number of themes that we push forward. So food security, pollinators, fertilizer, farm animal welfare, antibiotics, cybersecurity, corporate governance, all these sorts of things. And then the last bit of the AVIVA story that I wanted to share briefly was the latest development. So this is our climate change policy. And basically, we made a commitment that we launched last month. We said we would invest 500 million each year for the next 5 years in low carbon infrastructure. We've also identified 40 companies that we invest in that are pure play or predominantly thermal coal. And so we'll be engaging with them with kind of a sword hanging over the engagement. If it doesn't progress, then we'll divest. And we also commissioned, as part of this launch, a study from the Economist Intelligence Unit. And the question for the study was, what happens if nothing happens? So if COP21 is a disaster or nothing gets resolved, if we take no action, what is the cost? And unsurprisingly, it's trillions. it's 40 trillion to 70 trillion of the total investable assets on all the stock exchanges worldwide, and just all the capital markets. So it's huge, mind-blowing numbers. Sorry if I've depressed you. So, I mean, industry collaboration is the reason why I've come on a plane to Madrid today. It's the reason why we'll be able to fix things, and we can all do good work, but when we get together, we can do amazing things. These are some of the research providers that we buy research from. I know there's some representatives in the audience today. And very briefly, this is something that we show our fund managers. This pops up on their screen every morning, and they can see all the companies they invest in, and where there's red, that means there's a problem. So they can see how many red sections there are based on the research that we buy in. So I wanted to talk about the opportunities for collaboration. Now, I'm more than happy to talk about this over lunch as well, but these are some of the industry collaborations that we're involved with, and some others. And I'll limit it to 3. First of all, there's the Sustainable Development Goals. Our Chief Executive of AVIVA PLC spoke at the United Nations General Assembly in New York a couple of weeks ago at the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals. And it was quite funny, because he's normally the most important person in the room, and then suddenly he's at the UN General Assembly with all the heads of state. So it was quite interesting to see his reaction. And I think he's the only business leader who has addressed them, apart from Bill Gates back in 2008. So I can't claim any credit for it, but it was fantastic that he was so publicly endorsing the Sustainable Development Goals. Then there's the Capital Market Union. I spend a lot of time in Brussels talking about this, and the Shareholder Rights Directive, both of which are not taking sustainable investment into account much. There's a small amount, but not much. So we're lobbying to increase that. So yeah, I said I'd limit myself to 3. That's the 3. We'll skip that one. Nope, too soon. So what I wanted to finish with is a call to action, really. First of all, any of the engagements that we do that you might also be interested in, I'm very happy to do that collaboratively, very open. We've got 4,000 companies. There's probably some that we both share, and we can't fix this by ourselves. I don't think the UK way is the only way, and I don't think it's the best way, but UK investors are quite good at collaborating, and maybe because I used to work as a corporate lawyer, so I was used to non-collaboration. So maybe that's why I'm so impressed with the collaboration in the investment world. But building a coalition of investors and companies and NGOs is really powerful at shifting things for the capital market unions, for sustainable development goals. Policymakers sit up when you say, I represent, and this many trillion investors, these NGOs and these companies. It's unusual bedfellows. So if you'd like to get involved in any of the issues that I mentioned, we are more than happy to talk to you about that. And you're always assured of a warm welcome if you're in the UK. Come on in, meet the team. And yeah, it would be great to work closer on this. I'm very happy to take questions and answers, but in case I don't get a chance to do it now, thank you to the interpreters as well. Sorry if I spoke too quickly.